Alright lads, the time is now upon us. Koyanskaya is now on the NA version of the game, and she is going to change absolutely everything. And why does she change everything? Why is everybody losing their minds over this servant? Well, in the same way that when Scotty released for the 3rd year anniversary and how Castoria released on the 5th anniversary, Koyanskaya changes fundamentally how we're going to be using a certain card type, that being the Buster card type. Because before her release as it stood, you could really only do farming with the quick and art servants. Now, you're not exactly looping your NP in the same way that you would with the other guys, but what you're actually going to be doing is you're going to be getting so much NP, and you're going to loop one of your Buster Farmer's actual battery skills, and that's going to allow you to essentially do 3-turn farming with your Buster Servants. And this is really good because Oberon will also come out in about a week or two from now. And he and Koyanskaya basically make the strongest 1-2 punch when it comes to actually farming, because you can functionally brute force your way through anything. The reason this is important is that we're going to start getting these really difficult 90++ nodes that are going to be the optimal place for you to farm for every event. And they have these like 1 million+ enemies that you're going to have to fight. And while you can do it with, say, Castoria, it's more consistent to do with, say, someone like the Koyanskaya and the Oberon setup. And so we're going to talk about all things Koyanskaya related in today's video. I want to make sure that you understand how this servant functions in this kind of review. But before we actually start doing that, make sure you leave a like on the video and you subscribe to the channel for that sweet daily FGO content. And if you want to see me roll for Koyanskaya today, I will be doing that at about 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is linked down in the description down below. You can find my Twitch, and hopefully I'm able to get her, because you really only need one copy of Koyanskaya unless you want to use her as a DPS, I suppose. Then maybe you could go for additional copies of her. But with all that being said, let's start diving right into this, starting off with our hits, which aren't super important. They're not bad at all by any stretch of the imagination. 25.5% star gen with obviously an assassin passive that is buffing that star gen by an additional 10%. And a really strong NP gain stat at 0.76%. These are not bad, right? Because she's an assassin, she can drop really good stars with both of those quick cards that she's got over there with 4 hits a pop. The 5-hit extra attack is going to be very good for dropping stars. And even if you think she might be a little inconsistent, I guess, as a DPS, again, if you want to use her for that, she does have a very strong 4-hit arts card that's also being backed up by a 10% arts performance buff from her passive. She also does have a skill that will make refunding her own NP a lot easier, again, if you do choose to use her as a DPS, but realistically, I don't think a lot of people are going to be doing that. I appreciate that they did kind of make that an option for some people. If you want to use her as like an assassin AoE DPS type servant, she can be really good for that, especially because on one of her passives, she does just give herself 20% NP damage for free. That is very strong in and of itself. And if you do want to use her as a DPS, her NP itself is also really good for that as well. But again, let's be honest, not a whole lot of people are going to be using her for those purposes. You're going to be using her to support other Buster servants. But in order to fully understand how she's going to do that, we need to start talking about some of her skills. So starting off with her first skill, this is the Big Mac Daddy skill that makes Buster looping, Buster farming, whatever you technically want to call it, it's what makes it possible. So she's able to give somebody a 50% battery. It's targetable. It's very, very good. It's very similar to, say, Scotty. But it's that combined with this second effect right here, where she reduces their skill cooldown by 2. Keep in mind, you can have 2 Koyanskayas, so you can reduce that cooldown by 4. Now, why is that crazy? Most 50% battery skills are on a 6-turn cooldown, meaning that between both Koyanskayas, you can reduce that down to 2, and if you use that battery on your first turn, say you have a 50% starting charge CE, you're using someone like Drake, you fire that 50% battery, then when you get both of these on your second wave, by the time you reach the third wave, your battery has come off of cooldown. You can fire that again and plug it in your Oberon, and he'll give you whatever you're lacking. It is unfortunately, though, why moving forward, when you start to see AoE Buster servants that have a 20% battery, it's kind of a shaft for a lot of them, because the 20% is not possible. You have bare minimum to make some of this stuff work. You're going to need that 30%. At least initially, only 50% works because we don't have Oberon, but Oberon himself gives you 70%, 70 plus 30 being looped back equals 100%. You could fire that NP on that third wave. But it definitely creates this chasm between the Buster servants that have a 30 to 50% battery and those that do not. Now, obviously, I'm saying 30 to 50%, but if you have someone like, say, Arcweed, that also works. She'll be coming out next year, and she has a 100% battery. Although her system is a little bit different. You can do different things with Arcweed because of 100% battery. But even people like Melucian are really good with this, especially if you manage to pull her, because you could fire that 100% battery on the first turn, get the double Koyanskaya for 100%, and then, you bring in your Oberon over there, get the 70%, and then her first skill is a 30% battery, bada boom, bada bing, you're cooking. And you can even loop it if you want. You can even fire it on your first turn as well if you want that extra little bits of damage. So it just is a very, very nice skill that enables the entire system. This is like the most important thing that you definitely need to level up first. If you're going to be using her for Buster farming minute 1 as soon as she comes out, you gotta have that 50% battery right there. Unless, I don't know, you have some specific setup ready to go that makes it possible. But yeah, this is the main skill that does everything. This is what enables her to kind of be that Buster looping goddess that we've all been waiting for the last 2 years. Now, the second skill and the third skill, these are kind of just icing on the cake. The second skill is what I think makes her really dummy good, because you have someone like, say, Castoria, who you're going to see Koyanskaya be compared to a lot, because these guys are kind of sitting at the top of the game right now because they kind of enable you to do whatever you want with their specific card types. Now, Castoria has the Threat Against Humanity one, which is really strong. Koyanskaya also offers some damage mods, but she offers 2. She offers Human, and then she offers Man Attribute. Now, the one thing that I think they gave her 2 of these for is that Human is not super great. It's not bad, especially in, say, like a farming sense, right? But it's not the humanoid buff. That is all the servants. But human is still fine because it includes a lot of like the soldiers and everything that you'll find in farming nodes. You'll generally find these guys in like story chapters and stuff as well. It's not bad. It's just not as good as like, say, humanoid, which is like all of the human characters, right? And it's like all of the servants basically. But they also went ahead and gave her another damage mod that is really good. This is one of those ones that we talk about with a lot of newer servants, and then every time it comes around, we're like, this Man Attribute mod is really, really good, because not only do you have a little bit of overlap with those human guys, and you kind of add on a couple more of them, but it also allows them to hit a lot of different servants. And because, normally if you're using as a DPS, it's like, oh, you could hit a lot of like these riders and some of these berserkers, but because you're functionally going to be using this for farming, all of these guys become open season, and you just get to go around and just start bodying all of these guys, and whenever you see them in any farming nodes, it's just an absolute cakewalk. But that's not all this skill does. Even if it was just 2 damage mods, it would be really, really nice. But then they were like, actually, this isn't enough. Let's also have it bomb 20 stars, and then anytime that servant that has this skill attacks with their Buster card, they refund 10% of their NP. That's why I was saying that if you want to use Koyanskaya as a DPS herself, she's functionally rocking 3 arts cards, kind of, if you want to look at it like that. But then any shortcomings you might think she has when it comes to genning stars, she can also just bomb 20. This is especially going to be good 2 years down the line when someone called Kukulkan comes out. She is one of the best, if not the best Buster farmer in my opinion. She's definitely really high up there. She's real good. But that servant requires 20 stars to really unlock all of her skills. Well, would you look at that? Koyanskaya on only her second skill provides the 20 stars that Kukulkan will need. It's very, very good. This skill just continues to age and be very, very strong. Finally, there's her third skill. This is just kind of like the 50% card buff that all of these really godly supports are going to have. Scotty gives the 50% quick, and Merlin gives 50% Buster. Artoria gives 50% arts. Koyanskaya is Buster, so she's also giving 50% Buster, but she's also giving you a little bit of crit support by giving insane star weight to your Buster cards while also giving them a 50% crit buff to your Buster cards specifically. If you're a bit newer and you don't really have any context for how much crit that is, that's going to be the waiver crit skill, but specifically for your Buster cards. And I do like how this is designed. You could say, well, giving all that star weight to the Buster cards, that's not going to allow my Buster servants to get to their arts cards to get any extra NP gain. Well, one, the second skill is going to provide a little bit of NP whenever you fire those Buster cards. 2, probably won't matter anyway because Koyanskaya is going to be giving you a whole lot of battery, and you'll probably just turn the enemy into paste before it even really matters. But if you look at her kit, she's got all this really nice stuff going to support people. She's enabling the Buster meta. She's giving 2 really solid damage mods, and is also doing a little bit of crit support and giving us that nice big Buster buff that we all know and love. The only real criticism I have of the skill set that she's got is that if you want to use her as a DPS, which again is really not that much of a problem at all, because who's going to use her as a DPS? But if you do want to use her as one, she doesn't really have any survivability, which really shouldn't matter, arguably, because she should probably just be able to turn people into paste and just absolutely eviscerate them, but that is something to kind of keep in mind. She does technically have survivability over here on her NP, where she's able to reduce the enemy's NP gauge by 1, but I don't know if that's really going to be able to keep her and the entire party alive. What it is very nice for, though, is that while she does have an offensive NP, and you might be like, oh man, I wish she was like Merlin or Castori, where she had this really good support NP that I want to fire, you still technically want to fire this NP, because, again, not only does she have that kind of nice support of being able to reduce the enemy's NP gauge, which is very nice if you want to fire this, but on her overcharge over there, you could see that she's going to be refunding the party's NP gauge, which is actually kind of relevant because you might be using her with Morgan, who does increase your own overcharge levels, or you might be using her with Himiko in more difficult content, who does the same thing. And so that's why I consider that while Koyanskaya doesn't have like the craziest support NP, it's still something that you do want to be mindful of, because it can give you a little bit of NP back, or you can use it at a critical moment to do a little bit of chip damage while also reducing the enemy's NP gauge to keep your team alive. So technically, in a roundabout way, she kind of does have a way to keep the party alive in just a very weird roundabout way. It's not a very conventional way like Merlin's illusion skill, but it can still get the job done. So yeah, when it comes to Koyanskaya, the title of this video is like, is she a must summon or she's a must summon? I don't know what I'm going to title it yet. But yeah, she is absolutely nuts. You do need to go for this servant because she is very crazy. I've been answering a lot of questions for people, like just kind of leading up to Koyanskaya's release. They've been like, oh, should I go for Oberon first? Should I go for Koyanskaya first? I have Castoria. Do I need her? This is a servant that you really should pick up. You should be investing a lot of your materials into trying to get this servant because she is an absolute game changer. I am telling you, in about a year-ish time, when we start getting these real big 90++ nodes that start to be really difficult, I believe it really starts to come in full swing around Summer 7. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's about when they start getting really crazy. You'll really want to have someone like this, especially with Oberon, to be able to take those guys out. Because while you can still just kind of skip out on her, go for Oberon and do Castoria setups, because Oberon still works very well with those art setups. They like to use Black Grail. Oberon also loves anybody that gives himself massive NP damage, so Black Grail is super huge for him. You miss out on that massive Buster buff that Oberon also gives on his third skill as well, and you don't get to take full advantage of him. You get to take almost full advantage of him, but it's just not quite there. Koyanskaya and him would just seem like they were built to be ran together on two separate units, which, I don't know, think of that how you will. Maybe you think it's a little bit greedy for, I guess DW, technically, they were the ones that put this one out, but it's still just the 1-2 punch of FGO that I think makes Buster farming the best in the game. Koyanskaya compared to Castoria, just kind of on their own, I think Castoria is a better, more powerful unit individually. She just kind of does way too much. But then when you throw in there just the perfect synergy she has with Oberon entering into her setups, it just makes her dummy nutty good. It just makes her way too good to pass up. This is a servant you do need to go for. Especially if you went for someone like Melusine or Morgan and you got them, they're very, very good with Koyanskaya. They can really do some work as Buster farmers. So instead of asking if you guys are going to pull for Koyanskaya, let me know in the comments down below how your rolls went. I have not done my rolls yet, as I said earlier. I will be doing those later today. So make sure you come on out to that and see me do a couple of summons. Maybe I get Koyanskaya, maybe I get absolutely eviscerated. Who knows? I'm hoping that my good luck as of late has not kind of spoiled how good my rolls are going to be. I'm a little nervous laughter, you know, I'm a little nervous, but hopefully I'll see some of you guys out there, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Peace, late guys.